Something has changed in the world, and you feel it even without being able to name it. Time seems to go by faster, days go by in vain, and no matter how much you produce, achieve, study or fight, nothing seems to truly fill you. What's missing? Max Weber called this the disenchantment of the world. For him, the greatest impact of modernity was not just economic or technological, it was spiritual. It was the loss of the deep meaning of things. Life, which was once full of symbols, rituals, beliefs and invisible connections, became a series of procedures, goals and routines. You wake up, you work, you deliver, you consume, you distract yourself, and you repeat. But where is the meaning in all of this? Weber saw modernity as a process of extreme rationalization. Everything had to make logical sense, everything had to be explained scientifically, everything had to be efficient. And along the way, mystery disappeared. The sacred became superstition. Silence became wasted time. Contemplation became laziness. So what's left? A world where you know more and more, but feel less and less. Where you have access to everything but connect with almost nothing, where you strive for results and recognition, but feel a growing emptiness at the end of each day. Weber saw this coming. He said that the more we advance technologically, the more we lose our capacity for wonder. And wonder, that sense that life has a greater, invisible, magical meaning, is precisely what keeps our souls alive. It is no wonder that so many people today face existential crises, chronic anxiety, silent depression, not for lack of resources, but for lack of meaning. The great modern tragedy, according to Weber, is this: life has become a technical problem, and the human being has become an operational function. You no longer ask, "Who am I?" but rather, "What do I need to do today?" And when that happens, you stop existing and you just start functioning. The bad news is that this process is silent. You don't realize the exact moment you stop dreaming. You just feel like something inside you is dying, even though everything is going well. The good news? Awareness is the first step. Weber did not provide a ready-made solution. But he sounded an alarm. If you do not recover your sense of purpose, you will end up being swallowed up by a world that only values what is useful. And you were not born to be useful. You were born to be whole. Max Weber used one of the most powerful images ever created in modern philosophy, the iron cage. For him, this was the inevitable fate of a society that exchanged mystery for logic, the sacred for efficiency, and the human being for the system. The iron cage has no visible bars. It's made of spreadsheets, goals, tasks, schedules, and metrics. You live in it when you feel like you're always busy, always running, always exhausted, and yet still empty. You live in it when everything seems under control, but nothing feels meaningful. When your life is measured in productivity, but your soul is starving for meaning. This is the modern trap that Weber saw forming. We have arranged the world to work perfectly, but we have forgotten to ask ourselves why it should work. The reason so many people wake up every day with a heavy feeling in their chest, even without a serious problem, is because they are not sick in body. They are lost in soul. They are stuck in a routine that does not nourish anything inside. Weber explained that the bureaucratization of the world has made us more rational, more technical, more objective, but it has also taken away our sense of purpose. Before, work was sacred. It was a profession, a vocation. Today, it is a task. It is a demand. It is a curriculum. Before, time was cyclical, linked to nature, to the body, to mystery. Today, time is a stopwatch. It is productivity. It is KPI. And in this invisible transition, you were also transformed. You stopped writing for pleasure, creating without a goal, resting without guilt, dreaming without rushing. You have forgotten how to contemplate, how to be moved by silence, how to feel part of something bigger. Because the modern world, according to Weber, doesn't want you to feel. It wants you to follow the schedule, follow the career plan, follow the flow. And if you try to stop, if you try to find a new meaning, the system reacts. It calls it madness. It calls it irresponsibility. It calls it a waste of time, because the cage doesn't want you to escape. It wants you to settle in. But here is the truth that Weber left as his legacy. The cage has no key. It just needs you to forget that you are trapped. That's why you need to wake up. Not in the sense of productivity, but in the sense of presence, in the sense of soul, in the sense of returning to who you were before the world shaped you. Because as long as you accept living just to function, the meaning will continue to disappear. And one day, maybe, it will be too late to remember what you really wanted. Max Weber understood something brutal about the modern world. The more rational it becomes, the more it destroys what is sacred. We are not just talking about religion, but about the sacred as everything that cannot be measured, explained, or fit into a spreadsheet. Love became a contract, friendship became a network, vocation became a career, life became production. And in this silent transformation, something in you is being eroded. The ability to feel that your existence has a meaning that cannot be explained, only experienced. What was once lived with emotion now needs justification. You need to explain why you want to make art, why you need rest, why you feel sad. Everything has to be useful, productive, monetizable. If it doesn't generate profit, it's a waste. If it doesn't generate metrics, it's irrelevant. Weber called this the instrumentalization of life. It's when everything begins to exist only as a means and never as an end. You study to pass, you work to move up, you relate to win, you live to function. But human beings were not made to be means. You were not born to be a bridge to anyone's success, not even to the artificial success they promised you. When the sacred is destroyed, everything becomes a thing. Everything becomes a calculation. Everything becomes a performance. And the price of this, the total loss of meaning. You wake up and already feel behind. You run to keep up, but you never really know why you're running. Everything seems urgent, but nothing seems important. And the silence, which could heal you, now scares you. Because in the silence, you hear what the system has trained you to ignore: your emptiness. Weber did not write as a mystic, but he saw what mystics have always known. Human beings need an untouchable inner space. A place where they feel whole, even without recognition. A place where time stands still, where the soul breathes. But the modern world has destroyed this place. It has put clocks everywhere, cameras, expectations, rankings, and it has sold you the lie that there is only value where there is evaluation. That's why today, so many people live like zombies with diplomas, smiles in stories, tears in the dark, success on LinkedIn, failure inside. Everything is in its right place, except the soul. The tragedy? This has become the norm. Weber knew that rationalization would bring progress, but he also knew a world without mystery is a world without a soul. And if you have lost your soul, you may be alive, but you are not living. Have you ever had that feeling that you're going with the flow, but it's not your flow, that your life is in order, but out of whack? Weber saw this clearly. He observed that in the pre-modern world, people did not live just to survive. They lived in response to an inner calling. They called it vocation, mission, faith, purpose. It didn't matter what it was called. What mattered was that there was a why before the how. But modernity has turned everything upside down. Today, you are taught to look for how to make money, how to get promoted, how to be productive, before you even figure out why it matters to you. You trade your gifts for a diploma, your time for a salary, your identity for a professional avatar. And the further you advance, the more you feel that something was lost back then. Weber called this the crisis of vocation. In the past, work was a calling of the spirit. Today, it is a market obligation. In the past, identity came from within. Today, it comes from the badge, the status, the algorithm. And this leads you to an invisible dilemma. You want to feel like your life has meaning, but you're trapped in a system that only rewards you for not feeling it. You are valued for being cool, quick, rational, efficient. But inside, you live someone who screams for connection, passion, creation, truth. This conflict doesn't show up in meetings or in reports, but it does at night, when everything is quiet and you feel like you're living someone else's life. It is at this moment that the pain arises. The pain of having betrayed yourself in order to be accepted. The pain of having buried dreams that didn't fit into your resume. The pain of having adapted so much that you no longer know who you were before all this. And here is the tragedy. The modern world does not want you to hear this inner call because it is not profitable. It asks for pause. It asks for listening. It asks for courage. And none of that is welcome in a system that needs you to function, not to flourish. But Weber left us a message. As long as there is a whisper inside you, something is still alive. And that whisper may be fragile, but it is sacred. Because it reminds you that you were not born to repeat. You were born to respond, to create, to be whole. And if you ignore it for long enough, life goes on. But it won't be yours anymore. Max Weber did not write for the strong. He wrote for the conscious. He knew that the modern world would never be the same again. Progress was inevitable. Rationality had won. Mystery had receded. But he also knew something even more profound. Human beings only survive when they find meaning. And that is why his work is a silent scream, a warning not to let the logic of the modern world rob you of what is most precious, the why of your existence. You may have all the answers, but if you have lost the question that drives you, then you are wandering. You may have stability, recognition, prestige, but if you have forgotten to listen to what your soul whispers, then you are repeating a life that is not yours. Weber saw that the real danger of modernity was not the system itself. It was the fact that it was so efficient that it would make you forget you were in it. You wake up, you do your tasks, you survive, and one day you die without ever having lived with purpose. But the way out is not to destroy everything. The way out is to recover something. Recover the silence that connects you to the essential. Recover the gratuitous gesture, the non-productive time, the meeting without an agenda, the creation without purpose, doing for the sake of doing, not for the sake of yielding. Weber knew when everything becomes a means, the only truly human act is to do something as an end in itself. To love without strategy, to serve without vanity, to create without contract, to seek without haste. This is how meaning returns, not as a ready-made answer, but as a presence. And maybe you don't have to let go of everything. Maybe you just need to remember who you were before the world taught you to forget. Every time you honor what you feel, even if no one understands, every time you say no to something that steals your soul, every time you choose the sacred over the functional, you are doing what Weber intended, re-enchant the world, even if it's